Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed. I teach business administration at City College. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Alison. Alison, can you tell us more about yourself?
First, what I do. So what I do is originally, I'm the online services librarian at San Diego Mesa College. I've been doing that for 18 years. And recently, within the last couple of years, as AI has become something that has really taken over what we do in many ways, we know that there are a lot of emerging technologies that are affecting what we do in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And so the district office created positions now called Innovation and Emerging Technology Faculty Specialists. And there are some of us, you included, who are doing this. And we're on some release time. I'm on release time anyway, some reassigned time where I'm getting reassigned to work for the district office on innovation and emerging technology, which right now is a lot of AI. Because that is what's affecting the classrooms more than anything else as far as emerging technology goes. So there's that. Then there's also the state of California, which I'm on some reassigned time for the state of California to work on a pilot project. I'm a special advisor on AI and information literacy. And I'm working on creating a toolkit that can be used at any college for AI literacy and AI fluency to teach those skills. So that's what I'm doing for them. And also, in my spare time, I am the president of the Council of Chief Librarians, which is an organization that advocates, negotiates, and does professional learning for librarians at all 116 California community colleges. So I've got another year as president doing that. So that is what I do professionally, basically, yeah, in a nutshell.
That's very exciting. So in terms of emerging technology, just in few sentences, maybe in couple sentences, how have you been seeing AI as an emerging technology, just in general?
It's how it's affecting us, really. I mean, it's becoming part of so many things. I mean, it was already part of our cars, right? Our GPS system uses AI. So our phones use AI. So it's already seeped into so many things that we do. Now it's seeping into the classroom. Now our students are getting used to using AI. So they're playing around with it. How can we use it in the classroom? How can I use this to be a thought partner? How can I use this to do many things? So it's everywhere. And we need to respond to that, whether we like it or not.
Absolutely. So libraries are being affected by AI, regular classrooms are being affected by AI, really everything we do on a community college level, at least for San Diego Community College District, but really everyone, all universities, all
Throughout the world.
throughout
Yeah,
the
I
world.
listened to a podcast called AI in Education that comes out of Australia, I believe. And that they talk about how AI is affecting education throughout the world at universities, at community colleges, at K-12 level. And so it's permeated everything. And to think that it is going to go away, I think at this point is not going to happen. I know there are those that are hoping it's a flash in the pan and it'll go away like the laser disc did, but I don't see that happening because it's become part of Google, right? Your Gemini response, you can put in a sentence now instead of keywords and you're going to get an AI response before you get those web pages. It's just something that we need to start getting used to, and we need to start deciding how we want to use.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. And just before we even go into the nuances of our discussion and all of the specific things to do and not to do, reasons to adopt AI and reasons not to adopt AI, and how can we adopt AI, or how can we, I don't know, fight back against AI? What is And this is something we haven't practiced. This is
Okay.
just a surprising question. I'd
Okay.
like to do those. I did those to Rodrigo last time, and so this is what I'm going to do to you
I
as
love
well.
surprises.
Yeah, I know, right?
Great. Okay.
So unscripted question. What is the least effective thing that I can do as a faculty when dealing with AI?
I think the least effective thing you can do is not check in. with AI, because your assignments may not be valid any longer. They may not, well, not so much valid, but they just effective. You've got course learning outcomes, you've got student learning outcomes that you are contractually obliged to do, to get to by the end of your session with the students, the end of the term. And if you can no longer do that, if you put your assignment in AI and AI can just give you that product, then that you're no longer have an effective assignment there, because you need to assume that students are going to use it. We have data that shows that at least 80% of our students are using AI for some form of their educational journey. Not necessarily just cheating. People think, oh, it's all cheating, but it's not all cheating. There's a lot of thought partner things going on. There's a lot of brainstorming, that sort of thing going on as well. Creating quiz questions so that they can get more things done there. So just to think that you can just ignore it. I think ignoring it is folly for our students.
Absolutely, yeah. So ignorance is not bliss
No,
at this point.
yeah,
At least at this.
unfortunately not. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, before we go into again the discussion within AI and how we can deal with it or how we can adopt it, I actually just wanted to learn a little bit, and I hope our audience can learn a little bit about who you are just as a person, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
faculty are people, right? We're not these perfect beings
Oh, no.
that
No, we
don't.
aren't.
Yeah, we are human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about the kind of human part a little bit.
Well, the most surprising thing for most people is I was Muay Thai kickboxing for over 20 years, and I'm getting back into it now, actually. So that was really fun. I sort of got, we had sort of ranks within, you could beginning, intermediate, advanced, so I went up the ranks at my particular kickboxing gym, and they went out of business. So I stopped doing it for a while, and now I found another place. So I'm going to start that up again. So Muay Thai kickboxing, a lot of fun, really full body workout. I recommend it highly. So there's that. Also, within the last 2.5 years or so, I got into dragon boat racing. So I'm on a team of all women, and we dragon boat race, which is a boat that has 20 people on it, 20 paddlers on it, a drummer at the front, a steersman at the back, and we all paddle at the exact same time. So there's a lot that goes into doing that. There's just finesse, and you have to do it at the exact same time where it's a mess. I mean, imagine, right? One person does one thing, the other person does the other thing, click, clack, all the way. Oh, yeah, it's a mess. So it's a lot of fun, and they're wonderful people. And I'm having a really good time with the dragon boat racing. Outside of that, I do a lot of sewing. I make quilts and bags. I go to sewing retreats. I'll be going to one later this week. In Salt Lake City. So I go to sewing retreats, and I have lots of friends from all over the nation that go to these retreats. And we go regularly to these retreats, so I see them twice a year, these people. So that's really fun. And of course I'm a librarian, so I do a lot of reading. Then at home I've got 2 dogs. So 2 spaniels, a Cocker Spaniel and a Spaniel mix, and my husband. And I spend a lot of time, with my family in my house, just being happy, and working out, outside of kickboxing and dragon boating. We have a gym in our garage, and we do a lot of working out. So
That's awesome.
that's me.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, any favorite genres when it comes to reading? Do you do mostly professional stuff, research, or
I listen to a lot of professional stuff. It's kind of interesting. I listen to a lot of audiobooks of professional works, particularly in AI and education at this point in time, and AI and education podcasts and that kind of thing. For personal reading, I do a lot of fiction. I'm not really into nonfiction because I do so much of nonfiction for professional. I just want to get away, and the specific genre, I belong to a book club. That's another thing I do. And so I get to read all kinds of different books that I may not choose otherwise.
Oh.
And there's one every month, so I have to try and keep up with that. So I don't read a lot of extra books because I'm always reading a book for a book club. And sometimes I love them, sometimes I hate them, sometimes I give up on them because they're just not the book for me. And it's okay to not finish a book. That's fine. Some people really want to finish, and you don't have to. You can give it up. It's okay.
You can?
You can. You
Okay.
can give up on a book. It's fine. There are so many more. Your life is short. There are so many more better books to read if this one's not working for you.
Okay, so we all have Allison's permission and approval, and
Yes,
we have it on video, so it's
you heard it from
okay.
me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. First time actually from a librarian. Yeah. No, but thank you. Let's now transition to some reasons to talk about AI, or some reasons to adopt AI, and some reasons not to adopt AI.
Well, okay, so you don't have to adopt AI in your personal life. I am not of the, there are many reasons not to adopt AI, a lot of ethical reasons, which we can get into later, that people don't want to do that. And I get it, and it's okay. My concern is how it's affecting us in the classroom, like I was saying before, because we need to figure out how do we respond to AI in the classroom, and for administrators and classified professionals in our daily work. How do we respond to it? How do we talk to students about it? Even if it's no AI in my classroom, you need to have enough AI knowledge to be able to say, why no AI in my classroom? And have those conversations, because they've got another class that says a little bit of AI and another class that says a lot of AI. And, this class is different. So what is it about this class, the humanization that you need in that voice, or the process that you're going through? Because that's another thing too, the professors in olden days were looking for product.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for it. So I tell you to summarize this and you give me that product. AI does that. It gives you that product. So how do we change our pedagogy so that we perhaps have more of a process, and we do more grading on what that process was like? Product, whatever the product is, great, fine in the end. But how did you get there? Mm-hmm. How did you cognitively develop to mm-hmm. get to that point? Mm-hmm. I think that's really more of what I'm concerned about when it comes to education, mm-hmm. Because there are those that are still saying no, and it's concerning, because you need to create those AI resilient assignments and assessments so that you can get those course learning outcomes and those student learning outcomes taught, because that's really, how to help them learn how to think, how to cognitively develop. That's the key, right? Isn't that what we're going with this? So yeah, how can AI work? How can you work with AI or not, but be able to discuss?
And I like how you mention AI resilient, being AI resilient, or developing that AI resilience in your course. You did not say AI resistant, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we're not trying to be resistant to an emerging technology that seems to be permeating the entire world, well, the academic and also real world, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting word choice that you say resilient, right? So
Yeah.
so we know it kind of brings to my mind like an image of a plant, right? Like a plant doesn't have to be resistant to wind.
Yeah.
It could be resilient, right? So
Right.
it moves with it. It needs to be flexible, or in other words, resilient.
Yeah, which is, it's key. It's key. Again, you need to know enough about it to be able to work with it. Mm-hmm. Or if you don't work with it, be able to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Be able to explain. Resistant just doesn't cut it for most areas. That's another thing too, right? Each subject specific area has different effects from AI, has mm-hmm. different things they need to adapt to mm-hmm. with AI. Mm-hmm. So, I may need to know one aspect of AI really, really well, and you don't need to know that at all. Yeah, so it's a matter of understanding where your lane is, and making sure that you know enough in that lane to do what needs to be done to get these students where you want them to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any reasons maybe not to adopt AI, not to kind of, yeah.
Yeah, well, there are many, many ethical reasons. Uh-huh. We can go into that, ethics. So, for example, climate is a huge one. Climate, mm-hmm. people say, we're creating all these data centers. They're using all this water. They're using all this electricity. I don't want to be part of that, mm-hmm. and I respect that. Now, do understand that when you do your Amazon search, when you stream Netflix, you're also using a great deal of water and power. So. perhaps if you do need to use ChatGPT, for example, you use the mini think, or you use the I think it's called quick, or I forget what it's called, but instant, instead of the thinking mode, which does a deep think, because the instant takes less climate, does less for the environment than the deep thinking does. So knowing enough ethically to decide, okay, well, I need to at least see what my assignment does. So I need to throw it into ChatGPT. Maybe I'll do an instant first to see if so ethical reasons, that's the biggest one I get, is the climate, but there's also bias and inaccuracies. So it is very biased. We call it weird, Western educated, industrialized, the R, and democratic. I'll get the R will come to me, I think. But so the perspective that it has to do with who trained the model, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the cultural backgrounds of people. It's very white, it's very educated, and standard education, so people bringing in their cultural norms, people bringing in their the way that they speak, it's not in there. And if I type in a different way than it expects me to type, it may dumb down its response. So there are so many biases. If you say, what does a successful community college professor look like? You are not going to get someone who is of color. It's just not going to happen. So this unless you tell it to, you can tell it to, right? But so bias and inaccuracies is another. There are lots of them. There's social reasons. There are the training models also have been people have been on the backs of laborers in other countries who are not paid a lot. So there are a lot of reasons why AI may not be the thing for you, and that's okay. You are kind of using it whether you like it or not, though. Again, if you use your GPS system, if your phone has, even if you're not using the voice activated, Siri or whatever, even if you're not using that, it's embedded within things. So you can't just not use AI. You cannot use large language models. You cannot use what's called agents as they come along. But you are using AI whether you like it or not. It's just how active are you going to be? And I respect those who don't want to be active. There are many ethical reasons, and it's perfectly valid.
And one thing that comes to mind is what is known nowadays as the social phenomenon, or kind of informal way of calling it, AI slop, right?
AI slop. Yep.
So the issue with not being familiar with how AI operates and how it generates information and the different biases it has is that you could actually be consuming AI slop without really knowing. And it takes, in some cases, it's easier for faculty to figure out if someone is using AI because of the language that's being used, or maybe it's a higher level than an undergraduate student. But in some cases, for consuming news, for consuming like images, we do not really like articles overall. We cannot really tell if it's AI or not.
So this is basic information literacy. Yeah. So as a librarian, our bread and butter, our subject-specific expertise is information literacy. AI literacy and information literacy are very much the same thing. So what you're talking about, evaluating your source, this is something that we teach. We've been teaching forever, as long as academic librarians have been around. We've been teaching how to evaluate your source. So in this instance, how do you evaluate that output? And knowing that you must evaluate that output, you cannot take it at first blush. And even if it gives you a source, how good is that source? Just because it used a source doesn't mean that source is a good one or academic. Perhaps it's not a scholarly source, even though it looks like one. So how do you evaluate that website that it took you to, that it got that information from? This is basic AI literacy, basic information literacy, just one of the many aspects of information literacy. But yeah, so you need to know enough to be able to do what needs to be done because you need to work with it. Mm-hmm. You can't let it work for you. It's this cognitive offload, right? You can't have it do, it's like a good way to put it, I think. Your GPS system. The first time you go to your friend's house, you use your GPS system till you get there. Well, you always use your GPS system. So you cognitively offload the directions to your friend's house. Your GPS breaks. You don't know how to get to your friend's house because you never paid attention because you cognitively offloaded that. So the same thing happening with with other things. So we have to be very careful not to do that. So how do we teach enough AI literacy to understand how to work with it? Which is all part of information literacy, continuous learning. How do I use the output that I've been given? How do I use the scholarly source that I'm using? So once it even if it does give you a good scholarly source, okay, now I have this piece of information given to me by this scholarly source. What do I do with that? How and I can work with AI. And you can tell AI only give me scholarly sources, but that doesn't mean it's only going to give you scholarly sources that you want to use or that are sufficient for your need. So librarians are needed more than ever. if you ask me, the librarian. But I really think this teaching of AI literacy is key for everyone because you want to be able to use that AI responsibly. It's the backbone of how you use AI.
Absolutely. And I've encountered people who argued at the beginning of the kind of AI revolution that AI is going to eliminate libraries, right? Because why do I have to go find information and synthesize it if I can just use an AI agent or an AI bot or an AI tool that can just do the work for me? And, Perplexity.ai is one example. Back in the days when ChatGPT couldn't really go on the internet and you could just go to Perplexity.ai and you don't really have to talk to your librarian. Who cares, right?
Right. Well, we've been going through this forever. I remember back in the day when people said we don't need librarians because we have Google now.
Yeah.
We don't need librarians because we have whatever. It's like saying you don't need math because you've got a calculator. The calculator doesn't do all the things. It doesn't help you get where you need to go in the end. So it's like I was explaining there. The information literacy key, because it's a transferable skill too. No matter what information you get, you're on social media. You get information from social media. Many people are getting their news from social media. So how do I evaluate that source? This is information literacy. So it's not AI literacy, it's information literacy. But this is the value that information literacy can bring throughout your life, that transferable skill to be able to critically evaluate and understand what it is you're dealing with when you deal with these sources, whatever your source is. Yeah, that's when you said no need for librarians. That a couple of years ago, the American Library Association had their annual conference here. And one of the librarians at this mixer came up to me and said, "My dean just said, are we going to need librarians in the future because we've got AI?" And that was interesting. That was, and that sort of woke me up back to advocacy. Librarians always have to advocate for themselves because we bring no financial value to your college. You can't make money off of us. The students don't come to our class. You can't get the ways that we make money. Our value comes in a different way. So you need to understand the value, and people aren't going to understand the value unless we tell them.
Absolutely.
And once we tell them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, we need librarians." But we're always advocating. I was in K-12 for 10 and a half years and as a librarian and constant advocating for the need for information literacy, the need for literacy in general with K-12, but that was a constant. And it's just part of our job, transformation in technology is happening all the time, and librarians are usually the first ones on it.
Especially in transformative years, right? So if we're talking about K-3, like if we're talking about even community colleges, I would say, you're definitely valuable to a PhD student because they're actually trying to review all of the literature. They're trying to actually come up with something new, groundbreaking research, groundbreaking knowledge. But at the same time, I would argue that you're probably more valuable to transfer, people who are, undergraduates, like freshmen, undergraduate,
Yeah.
have not thought critically about sources. So they need actually some hand holding.
Yeah. Well, I left K-12. One of the reasons I left K-12 was they were getting rid of librarians. And I was president of the California School Library Association, and I saw the writing on the wall. And this job came up, and it was perfect for me because it's online services, it's technology based. So I moved over. And what we're finding is our K-12 students are not getting information literacy instruction in the high school, in the middle school, so they come to us with no information literacy skills.
I see.
So they don't know how to research, they don't know how to evaluate. No one has walked them through the process and explained to them why it's important to be information literate. What is it that makes this, how are you a more valuable citizen in the world if you are information literate? How are you more effective in the classroom? How are you more critical? How are your critical thinking skills changed? Why do you need your critical thinking skills changed? So it's that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And absolutely. I was going to mention, how it relates to critical thinking, because ultimately we do we spend the money for business people, right? Like, why do customers spend money, right? Why do they choose our product and service and not someone else's product or service? Well, it's because they're critical thinkers, but also because of our marketing, right? So we want our marketing to appeal to their critical thinking. And you have like the ethos, logos, and pathos way of like rhetorical elements of convincing your customer. But really, being a good critical thinker is a life skill, right? Like it will help you be better with your money, spending. It helps all of us be better with our spending, including the entire country, right? Like, so we reduce our debt, hopefully, right?
Right,
So,
and it also helps you be more civically engaged. Because there's so much different. Like we're having an election right now, not an election. We're voting for something now in California, and you get a lot of yes on this, no on this. And how do you know how you feel about that yes or that no? You need to be able to critically evaluate the information that's being given to you, because if there's clear bias in the yes, there's clear bias in the no. So understanding that there are bias being handed to you, how do you evaluate and decide where you stand? That's information literacy.
And one thing, based kind of on what you mentioned, you're mentioning that, okay, so if I see an article or if I ask AI, if I see really any piece of information, I have to go and evaluate the source.
Right.
The problem, so that's if I'm dealing with a publication, right? Like, or I'm talking to a human, I ask them, like, why do you think so? If I'm dealing with AI, it's a black box technology. I do not know, I do not understand how LLMs are implemented. I do not understand the different weights in the neural networks that helps it make decisions on what's, what to say. So I don't really understand how it does its thinking. How am I supposed to trust it? So that's your job, basically, right?
That's my job. Yeah, because the evaluating that source, okay, so we teach in information literacy, one of the things we teach is lateral reading. So what that really means is, let's say you pull up a website, you get a claim on that website. Okay, now you need to evaluate that website. How do you do that? You open up a new tab laterally to the right. You open up a new tab and you get more information about that initial item. Then you can open up another tab, and so you can back up that claim. So it's lateral thinking, and you do the same with ChatGPT. Just because your large language model, like ChatGPT, that's not the only one, it's just the most popular one right now. Just because your large language model says this is a fact doesn't mean it's a fact. So you can laterally open up a new tab and see about that fact. Even if it gives you, so let's say it gives you the source, right? So you laterally open up that source in the next tab and see what you think of that source. Then you open up another tab and so it's a matter of checking your sources. No matter where you're at, no matter if you're on your large language model, if you're on a website, if you're on social media, whatever it is you're doing, backing up what made them say that. Are they biased? Is that information biased? Is that information plain wrong? Is that information beautiful and exactly how I feel? May also be biased. I may be biased.
Yeah,
So
right.
am I standing up my my bias? So lots of people are in that echo chamber, right, where they're just looking at the things that back up their bias. So am I doing that? One of the things information literacy does is it makes you look at how you think, makes you look at how you feel. Why do I respond to this piece of social media, for example, and not that piece of social media? What is it about my thinking? So that you can, because you want a balanced approach. You want to decide, but if you only hear one thing in your echo chamber, you're going to decide what's in your echo chamber because you don't know any better. You don't know different. So information literacy helps you understand what the differences are, how to find those differences, that you need to think about your thinking, your critical thinking, part of information literacy.
I'm curious. So let's say you just convinced me that I need to care as faculty.
All right. Job well done.
I know, right? So let's say I'm convinced that I need to care about AI overall, whether I like it in my class, whether I do not like it, whether I should invest more in information literacy. I have a librarian in our college campus. What should I do? Do I just kind of tell us through your lens, what do you do kind of on a local level?
Okay. All of us have what we call one-shots, which means you bring your class to us in the library. And the reason you bring them to us is because there's usually a computer for every student, where in your classroom there may not be. Yeah. So for active learning, we want you to play with what we teach you. So you bring your class to us, we teach you about information literacy skills. So we teach you the things. We teach you how to find your information. We teach you what is, for example, a library database. What is it? How do I use it? How do I speak to it? How do I, what are keywords? How do I get the information out of this that I want? Once I get it, how do I evaluate it? We teach all of those things to the students in an hour and a half. So it's a lot to do in an hour and a half. Because we also try and make it, you'll have an assignment, hopefully, that we will be working with. So you'll give us an assignment ahead of time. We'll create the lesson or the lecture so that the students are doing something that is valid to them because they need to get that assignment done for you. So they're using something that they'll find useful in this respect, although we build it out so that you can see the transferable skill. But yeah, so there's that. So there's the one shot. There's also research guides that we call them lib guides, LIB guides, library guide, get it? So we create these lib guides or research guides, and we can create one, for example, for your class. So we can create them for business, and we can put in there information literacy skills information, plagiarism information. What are the different forms of plagiarism, for example, because people don't even realize there's 6 different kinds of plagiarism. So that kind of thing. We can put in links to associations that you want your students to know about, or specific organizations, or maybe there's a specific journal or 5 that you're interested in. We can put links in there that go directly to those journals. So this whole lib guide can really be a backbone for your class for research, any research that they want to do, even whether personal or if they're into business, let's say they want to be an entrepreneur, this could be a place where they go to find out more about entrepreneurship. Maybe there's an internship program on your campus that works with students for entrepreneurship. We could put a link there in that lib guide. So we create those and that helps back up what you did in the classroom and in the one shot. And if you don't come in for the one shot, it could be something that you do on your own. It's not going to be as impactful because you want to hit them at you want to differentiate that instruction, right? So this is all, we put videos in and we try to make it multimodal, but you're not speaking to them personally, and some people respond better to the one-on-one, to the personal touch. So there's resource guides, and there's those are the things we do. Some of the things we do more than anything are those, as far as that goes. There are librarians do many things. We all have our own subject-specific expertise.
Oh,
yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So, for example, we have an electronic resources librarian. That librarian deals with contracts, among other things. That person works with our vendors that we buy these databases from.
Oh.
See, so you have a certain amount of journals that, and this vendor has these journals, this vendor has these journals, this vendor has these journals. Never the two shall meet. So our electronic resources librarian needs to purchase subscriptions to those journals. And if something happens and that suddenly the journal's not being able to be seen, that librarian needs to make sure we have access. So they're really all about access to information. There's somebody that tags all the data, that puts all the data into our library services platform so that you can find. It's sort of like with AI, they are training their data model.
Yeah.
This person sort of does that. Sort of trains our library services platform so that you can find the information you need. And so every librarian at our college, at least, has their own specific subject-specific area that they specialize in. We all teach these one-shots. We all sit at the reference desk or are available to do reference appointments, or call us in our office. We'll come on down and answer your reference question. That's our bread and butter. We all do that. But we also all have these specific things that we do.
I see. Yeah. So you do all of that. So your
Yeah.
specific specialty and general duties, and then you're also doing other things that you kind of hinted at in your bio. So could you tell us more about the other things you're doing on a regional level, also kind of more in-depth on a regional level, and also on the state level?
Yeah, well, at the regional level, we've been doing a lot of webinars and a lot of workshops. Me specifically, I deal more with AI literacy and AI ethics than anything else. I really want to get that foundational information to anybody who needs it. I also do them on tools, how to use Notebook LM, for example, how to use ChatGPT maybe in a different way, how to look at ChatGPT as compared to Perplexity, as compared to Claude. So what are the differences in the output in these different large language models? So I've been doing a lot of that at my campus and for the district. So that's more than anything else. I'm doing that. Now we work on other things as well, like this podcast. We're doing as much as we can to help people learn how to support people in their response to emerging technologies.
And people being faculty and staff.
So classified professionals and administrators, because policies are needed. Like looking at our academic integrity policy, does that policy need to be changed and have AI specifically put in it, or is it covering enough about using outside sources that we don't need to say the word artificial intelligence, the phrase artificial intelligence? We can what we have is good enough, or not. What do we want to do? Do we need something as a campus? Do we need something as a district that says how you should or should not be using AI, or how we will or will not be getting these different tools to be adopted in our system? Do we need those things? So our administrators also need to have that AI literacy to be able to make these decisions about all the things. So yes, it's all those things. At the state level, I'm working on as a special advisor in artificial intelligence and information literacy. I'm working on creating a toolkit so that if you were wanting to, for example, let's say you're a faculty member, you want to teach ethics, you want to teach specifically about maybe climate. There's a lesson in there, something that'll walk you through. Here's something you can talk about with the students. Here's a conversation you can have. Here is an activity you can do. Here is a video you can watch. Here, all these things to help you teach that ethical item. So that's the big project that I'm working on for the state of California in a nutshell. So that's some of the things. I could spend the entire hour or more talking about all of the things, but those are some of the things that impact the most.
Nice. And when you say with the state, this is the state chancellor's
Yeah,
office.
California Community College Chancellor's Office. Yeah,
I
I've been
see.
involved with them in the AI world for a while. I've been on something
Uh-huh.
called the AI Council,
Uh-huh.
which is a group of administrators, classified professional faculty members
Uh-huh.
that meet regularly online. We meet every 2 weeks, I believe it is, and I've been there for a couple of years now, and we help create policy. We help make decisions about adoption of different tools. We
Mm-hmm.
help, or the policies involved with adopting the tools.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many things that we do that we're able to get these minds together from across the state of California,
Mm-hmm.
from all aspects of our
Mm-hmm.
employees. So I've been doing that for quite a while as well. And that's been very impactful. There's only about 5 faculty members on that council and about 25 administrators,
I see.
and 1 or 2 classified professionals. So the faculty voice that I'm allowed to provide
Mm-hmm.
is important and impactful. So my work here at the district also helps me understand where do we stand as a group, classified professionals,
Mm-hmm.
administrators, faculty, but specifically in this case, faculty. Where do we stand? How do we feel?
Mm-hmm.
What'll impact us? Because I am a voice. I'm one of
Mm-hmm.
only some
Mm-hmm.
voices in that room
Mm-hmm.
that help affect what's going on from the state level.
Absolutely. And I mean, even in business, we call this sentiment analysis, and it's a marketing function, actually. It's part of marketing. So most people think that marketing is just advertising, right?
Yeah.
You just advertise the product. I have a product, buy it because it's the best.
Yeah.
And here are the reasons why. Well, before you do that, you kind of want to understand where you are and where your customers are. And so if you're a person representing a region or representing a college district, you kind of want to see exactly, you want to see where most of the campuses are within that district. So if you had to come, and this specific question is unscripted. I just came up with it since you were mentioning what you've been observing on the kind of on I guess the state level and the regional level. What would be some calls to action or just some invitations for faculty, for staff from your perspective, just kind of being deployed at the state level and at the regional level? Because I've only spoken to maybe tens of people, or maybe like up to like at most maybe a couple dozen people.
Yeah.
So you've talked to more people. So what is some, I guess, a list of things to do for us or calls to action?
Stay informed, number one. Because if I was AI literate, I knew what I needed to know to get where I needed to go with AI 2 years ago, and then I was under a rock and I did nothing, I paid attention to nothing, I am no longer AI literate, because it's changed so much in the last 2 years that you're going to lose so you need to keep informed. Now, I'm not saying you need to go all dystopian and look at all the things that all of the hype is telling us about where we're going to go. We really can only see 1 to 3 years in the future. I mean, think of 3 years ago. We could not have predicted where we're at today. At least most of us couldn't have. And it's going to be the same 3 years from now. So you don't want to. I don't want to get into all of the hype, because that can be really sad. That can make you not like humanity so much, But there is our lane. There's education. If something comes up in the Chronicles of Higher Ed about AI, read it. If there's a podcast out there, I've got a number of podcasts that I listen to, little snippets. There's one called AI for Education, AI in Education, there's AI for Education. There's a bunch of them. But that one, he looks every day at a different thing that's going on in AI in education, small, like 10 to 20 minutes, and he's talking about how it affects the world and in education. If there's a YouTube video that you come across that's talking about AI and research, or AI and ESL, if you're an ESL teacher, watch it. It's 8 minutes of your life, 5 minutes of your life, and it will help you be better informed on what you do. So my call to action is basically keep your AI literacy up to date. You don't have to embed yourself in it. You don't have to focus on it, but you need to go to some webinars. If something is offered by your campus that looks like it could be mildly interesting in the area of AI, give it a try. We have recorded videos, the Office of Institutional Innovation and Effectiveness in our area. We have all these webinars that we've done are recorded. So anybody can go and look at them if they don't have time to see them originally. We're available. You've got questions about your English class and how AI is affecting your English class. One of the reasons we're hired as emerging technology innovation specialists, faculty specialists, is to help faculty. So we're here for that. So you're not alone. My call to action is keep informed and understand that you're not alone, and just allow yourself to get an understanding so that you can respond effectively to how it is affecting you at work, and if you choose to, in your world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Why? Because we're in the education business. So how can we, like, if we just want to kind of think about it logically, how can we educate our students on the goods and, well, positives and negatives of a new technology that's taking the world by storm if we do not even at least experience it a little bit, right?
That's the problem. That's the problem. It's what I was talking about before, those conversations, being able to have those conversations with your students. Why no AI in my class? Or why are we using different AIs for different assignments? This assignment is all AI. This assignment is no AI. This assignment is a little bit of AI. Why am I doing that? So because they are going to need to make those decisions in the workforce. Mm-hmm. When do I use AI? How do I use AI? Uh-huh. It's just something that we need to talk about now. Because if we don't, we're doing them a disservice, because they don't know. For example, let's just say you say no AI in my class, that's it, we're not talking about it anymore, we're done. Or you can use AI a little bit, just brainstorming, mm-hmm. Or whatever. Am I cheating? What makes me, where is the line? Mm-hmm. When am I cheating? When am I not cheating? Mm-hmm. Maybe I am a second language learner and I use AI to help me translate what I'm doing so that I can understand your course better. Am I cheating? Mm-hmm. They need to understand, mm-hmm. Because they're relying on AI for certain things, mm-hmm. Grammarly, mm-hmm. AI, so I'm using it to help with my grammar and my spelling. Is that cheating? Uh-huh. You said no AI. Yeah. So you need to know enough to be able to have those conversations just at base level, uh-huh. Because it has changed their world. And it will continue to change and if they're going to be ready for whatever it comes after our community college, whether it's mm-hmm. transfer, whether it's the workforce, whether it's just learning for fun, we need to be preparing them for that future. And if we ignore AI at this point in time, we're just not preparing them, I don't think. You can dip your toe in the water and have that be all you do, uh-huh. But I think at this point we just can't get around it.
Yeah, and we often, faculty and researchers talk about the ethics of using AI, mm-hmm. but not a lot of people think about the ethics of not disclosing your rules about using AI. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
How can I get my students in trouble if they actually did cheat or use AI abuse AI, if I had not actually defined what abuse is? So in every contract we typically, and we're all familiar with contracts because yep. we are a unionized industry. Yep. So we're all familiar with it. When any conflict, and this is like also in business, right? If you have a contract, you go back to the contract. The problem is, how can you enforce something if it's not mentioned in the contract or plagiarism in itself does not necessarily, at least it has not been codified in that way. Like the rules about it were written before AI. So it's pre-AI rules that need to be, we need to have at least a conversation about whether we want to update the rules to include AI. Yeah. And every professor has their own opinion, right? Some people are extremely that side or the other side or kind of in between. And so it's a continuum, and the best way of doing it is to have a conversation.
You mentioned disclosure. That's an interesting subject, because I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. If you get emails from, let's say, an administrator, let's say your dean, You
Oh.
get emails from your dean, and you look at it and you say, this is clearly AI written.
Uh-huh.
I've noticed, and there's actually some research to back this up now. I just heard about it the other day, that says you don't trust that information. You don't respect that information as much as you would have had you not have thought this was created by a large language model. So your students, if they think you're creating things with a large language model and you have not disclosed that, they will potentially have less respect for what you tell them.
Yeah.
Now, you have to be very careful though, because even if you disclose, that doesn't mean it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You need to explain to them where you're using large language model and where you're not using the large language model and why. There's the research that I was hearing about. The students, there was two kinds of feedback given. One was from a large language model, and it was a couple paragraphs of feedback, and the other was just a couple sentences, not from. So the large language model gave the paragraphs, a couple sentences was from the instructor. They valued that instructor feedback, and they didn't know which was which, right? But because that long-winded answer with the stuff, wasn't personalized. The couple sentences said, "I see what you did there. I see how you weaved this from your last essay. I see the growth in what you're doing." They're personal things that the instructor says as they get to know their students that AI doesn't do. Can AI do that in the future? Yeah, maybe. It's just like you can tell AI has written something very much a lot of the time. Well, the more I train my subscribed ChatGPT model, the less you will know it's not written by me, because I can train it to write like me. So relying on that is not useful in the end, because it's going to get better and better and better at not looking like AI. So it's going to fool us more and more. So anyway, this disclosure is important, and you have to be very, very deliberate about how you disclose, why you disclose, and explaining what your thought process was for using the large language model or not. Yeah.
Absolutely. The other day, actually just on Monday, I was looking at one of the community college mission and vision statements, and it had a bunch of bullet points and underlined and bolded and aspects of it, and I'm like, I know it was produced before AI, but it
Yep.
actually really sounded like AI
Isn't that interesting?
produced, and it's very interesting. And I was telling my students, I mean, just because something sounds like AI doesn't necessarily it was produced by AI.
Right.
In many cases, if you can chronologically prove that it was made pre-AI, like in terms of time, then you can maybe assume that it's not AI. And the other thing is, it seems like AI tools have a specific way of saying things.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like robotic, but it sounds like a textbook, which is very concerning,
Yeah.
because I feel like our academic language has now been, I don't want to say hijacked, but now it's kind of like, yeah. And my students at least assume that whenever something sounds formal and sounds like a textbook, then it must be true. And that's like a bias that I have to kind of teach them how to
Evaluating
break.
your output. It's evaluating the
Uh-huh.
output. Yeah, that's super important. Yeah, so it just understanding what goes into what you need to evaluate, is your what it comes out with, the standardized English, is that important? The students need to understand, perhaps, that product is not what I'm looking at. That end product is not important, and I would like to see you in that end product. What's important, like I was saying before, is that process. How did you get to that product? What were your steps? What did you learn in the process? And then write about that. Now, it doesn't have to have perfect grammar, doesn't have to have perfect English, standardized English. It's fine. The better you can get at that, will probably be effective for your communication skills, and so you need to be able to do enough to be able to communicate with me, but I need to see you in that product, and I need to understand how you got to that product. But the product being the assessment tool, in many cases, not as effective as it used to be, like I was saying before. You really need to understand that the way they got there was by training a model on so many things, good, bad, and ugly, right? And so it all turns into this mediocre output, and not necessarily mediocre because it's not grammatically correct, but mediocre because the human is not in the loop. So and you can discuss that with your students. Look, I put this in, this is the output I got. What is about this that I don't like? Why is it that I'm not going to like that response if you give it to me? That's a nice conversation to have. And it doesn't take too long necessarily to have that conversation. And don't just have it at the beginning of the term. This is something that needs to be brought up regularly, maybe with every assignment, so that they can be reminded. Number one, what is your AI syllabus policy? Because you've got a different one than they have, and they have a different one than they have. So they need to be reminded of what it is, and they need to be reminded, if you're using it, how it is expected to be used. So being a clear message to the students.
Yeah. So based on your answer, you mentioned humanizing education, right? Like having 3 sentences written by a human teacher is more valuable, even objectively speaking, than just having like an entire paragraph by like a tool.
Because it is so enticing to say, okay, I've got 40 students. I need to give them all feedback. Let me toss it into a large language model and get the feedback. First of all, you've got a privacy issue there. You're putting their work into this that then can be trained. Now you can tell it don't train. If you go into settings, in many of them, you can say don't use the data I put in here to train. But you don't really know. It's a black box.
Oh, for sure.
You don't really know. So it's their property, their work. So are you going to put their property into that large language model and then get the feedback? So you've got another ethical issue to deal with, but it's so fast and it does a pretty good job, so it's hard because it's enticing, but the old-fashioned way is more impactful to the student. What is your goal? Is your goal to be more impactful to the student, or is your goal to just get them some feedback? It's a choice.
Absolutely, yeah. So humanizing education, rehumanizing it, and the second thing you mentioned was kind of just leaving that, kind of focusing on the process. The process is, it's because we have to understand the process in order to critique it, because we can't really just look at the product, the final product, and say, I mean, if you're not familiar with how a bread is made, right? You can't really just say, I mean, every type of bread you're going to eat is going to be good enough, right? Like you're not familiar with the nuances of the process. So same thing if you're, I don't know, making software, right? Like if you just use the software, you can just say, oh yeah, I mean, it functions okay. It's not that slow. It's fine. It doesn't break. But then if you're actually a software engineer, you've been through that software kind of creation cycle, you understand that, this might work, this software might work for 500 people, but it might break for 10,000 people. Or it might be just damaging to the environment overall if everybody decides to use it. So it's not very good software. It needs to be improved. These nuances, these kind of chains, these different pieces of the process you can't really get if you didn't really study the process itself.
And process is messy.
Yeah.
It's not, asking students to just summarize this chapter is not messy. Process is messy. So one of the things that's so difficult is we're asking a number of professors to change the way that they teach, to change their pedagogy, and no one's paying them for that. No one's saying, you're no longer, assignments and assessments are no longer effective, so you need to go change that. Bye-bye now. And that is incredibly frustrating. And I get that. and had education created AI, education would probably have found a way to help you with that. We did not, we are underfunded, and
as always, right?
As always, so how can we help you continue to be effective? And it's a big ask. For some people, it's a huge ask, and it's a problem. We need to be able to pay our faculty to change their assessments and assignments. And how many faculty do we have? We have thousands. How do we do that? It's very difficult. Which is why we try and give as many tools as we can. I created a chat bot that helps you with your AI syllabus policy. So you can say, this is what I teach. I don't want AI in my class, and I want a conversation. And it will help you create that AI syllabus policy. It'll help you, and if that's too long, I want it shorter. It'll help shorten it, whatever you want to do. And then I want an activity, and it'll help you do an activity. It'll help you create a conversation. So if you don't have it in your head, that's okay. We've created a tool to help make this a little bit more efficient and effective for you to get where you need to go. Because, the goal is for you to be able to spend more time humanized with your students.
Absolutely.
And potentially use AI to help you do that, and ethically, responsibly. So maybe not to help it give feedback for all the students, because that's going to help you with your time. Maybe it's a different way. Maybe it's to help you differentiate your instruction. So I've got a bunch of athletes in my class. They're not getting my point. Oh. Maybe I can go to AI and say, okay, this is what I'm teaching. Right. I've got all these athletes. How can I help them understand? And maybe it gives them baseball references. Maybe it gives whatever. So I can help differentiate, or students that have disabilities, or there's so how can AI help me help them? So there are ways to do it, and we hope to help with the resources that we provide. Help them get there. And another thing is feedback. Everybody's so busy and they get so many emails, and there's so much time is spent with all these things, but we don't know what to provide without appropriate feedback. You give a hands-on tools and it works out really well and they really love it. Do I need to give more hands-on tools, or are that all the tools they need? Do we need to go deeper into those tools, or do we need a tool that also does something else? What is it that our faculty, administrators, and classified professionals need from us? Because you're guessing unless you get good feedback.
Absolutely.
Like our AI survey that we did, incredibly important to us. The survey that we did for the entire district. We can go through that data. We can use the Office of Institutional Innovation and Effectiveness, to go through that data and decide, where are our gaps? Where are the needs? How are they feeling? Is that something we need to be concerned about? Do we, all the things. So we do our best, but it's frustrating all around.
Absolutely. So definitely issue with incentives, not enough incentives for everybody to do this kind of on a transformational level. Like, I'm going to change the way I teach things. And then, but on the other hand, one, I guess, creative and kind of smart way of solving the problem is having specialists, faculty specialists, that can kind of do the bulk of the research, do the bulk of and then synthesize tools that can help everybody. So we're kind of trying to solve the problem, not in 1,000 unique ways, but we're trying to solve it in like 10 ways for 1,000 unique faculty. And then they can kind of customize their own, kind of like a branch, right? You start with bunch of roots, that's the information, that's the research, but then it gets all kind of synthesized by one kind of plant, right? And then it has branches and stuff. So that's kind of one thing you mentioned. And the other thing is, that feedback, right? So like COPs, Community of Inquiry and Practice.
And we're actually at the state level, they're creating a regional professional development network that is going to be working with all the regions in California. So we have like 9 or 10 regions. I think we have 10 that our state has been broken up into to make life easier to get communication out, and and different regions have different needs. There's cultural differences, in different parts of the state, so it also helps meet those needs. So there's a regional professional development network that is being started that is working on how can we help our region become more AI literate? How can we help them with syllabus policies, recreating their lessons, whatever it is that is necessary? How can each region focus on the needs of that region and help meet them? They're looking at, workshops, like untethered workshops, for example. So, we have a place that we show the workshop. So you can go into a place and we can all be in community together watching that workshop and talking about it, but you can also watch it from your house. Or wherever you are. It's also out there and it's recorded. So you can see if you can't be there live. So doing things like that can help everyone at one time, potentially, get those things done. So it's being thought about at many different levels, from the school level, from the district level, from the state level. We're really, everybody's working on it. It's, how can we help people respond to how it's affecting them, excuse me, how it's affecting them in the workplace, whatever that workplace is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were saying a minute ago or a few minutes ago that it's a little, it's kind of like a change in like kind of paradigms, like or ways of thinking, because I'm thinking like the way I studied what I studied, and probably the way you studied what you studied, like the way we became experts in our disciplines, respective disciplines, was through not using AI because it wasn't available.
And much of it also was transactional. We're looking for more transformational now, which is a different pedagogy. I mean, when I became a librarian in K-12, I went to teacher school, and I learned how to teach.
You just learn how to do it.
And this is, and I imagine that teacher school now looks very different than it did when I went. Because how you teach students now is different than how you needed to teach them back in the day, and what we learned back in the day.
Even modality-wise, in terms of even like different ways of incentivizing students. Students nowadays may be more incentivized to talk compared to write something, right? Because many of us have social media and we listen to other people. Some of our students have their own social media influencer accounts. And so we have FaceTime, we have kind of more like Zoom. And so we're kind of, I would say generally, collectively, we're more open to asynchronous communication compared to before, like 30 years ago.
Yeah, differentiating that instruction. So how do I, like my product, okay, so your product can't be something that easily can't be something that ChatGPT can just spit out. So is my product going to be a video? Is my product going to be a reel? Is my product going to be a menu? Is my a physical menu? What is my product going to look like? Is that something that, again, can be AI resilient? Can I change, since the product is so important to me, how can I change that? Now, I understand that if you are a writing instructor, you have probably the biggest issues to deal with, particularly online English faculty. It's a whole nother world for them, and we really need to be focusing with them as much as possible, because they can't change that product the same way that you can change the product for your classes, or even the process. It's different, and there is a lot to work on with that, with humanizing those classes and helping the students understand so that they will not use it as a crutch and use it more as a tool, and understand the importance of each. I'm trying really hard with to help as much as we can. We've been trying, as faculty specialists, because there's a lot to deal with there. But everybody's got something to deal with, unless you're like studio art. Maybe they don't have as much to deal with. They got the paint, they got the canvas. Maybe if that's their modality, maybe not so much with them. But there's everybody. It seems to be touching everyone in some way. Yeah. So a response is needed somehow.
Yeah. and hopefully a collective. There's definitely kind of grassroots, individual responses that we have to have because of academic freedom.
Yeah.
So just choosing your specific position on AI, and also choosing kind of the level of knowledge you want to develop within that new technology or about that new technology. But there's also the collective kind of effort as a I don't know, as different colleges or different departments in different colleges. So there's definitely more collective stuff.
You mentioned academic freedom,
Yeah.
and that is huge. You know, I keep telling people, faculty members, no one is going to tell you you have to use AI, because you have academic freedom. You have the ability to get to those student learning outcomes, those course learning outcomes, whatever way you feel is necessary. But you have to get there. You know, one way or another, you're contractually obliged to get there. But don't be scared that somebody's going to come in and say AI must be used in your subject specific expertise. That we can't do that because you've got academic freedom. So be happy in that knowledge, you know, because the people are scared. You know, why are you forcing AI on me? You know, that is a scary place to be, to feel that it's being forced on you. And you have a right as faculty members, you know, tenured or not, you have a right to get there as long as they're getting there. They have to get there. So, yeah.
I have one final question for you, and maybe it's a little bit idealistic, and again, it's a surprising, we haven't discussed this. If there is one thing you wish could change, or you can kind of magically change, what would it be? And this, anything, right? Like education wise, I don't know, like economics wise, anything really. You could take time.
There's a couple things that come to mind.
Please.
You know, one is funding. You know, I would change the way we're funded, because, like I said, you know, I would love to be able to help all the faculty really take the time and energy to work on how can we get there, you know, in the age of AI. You know, every faculty, and we just don't have the funding for that, and it's tragic. You know, it's so frustrating, you know, to be able to do whatever we can with what little we've got. So that's one of them. I'll tell you one thing I'd change AI wise, is the new agentic AI coming out, in some ways. Agentic AI, just as an example, can take, it's the next level. It can take multiple chatbots and talk amongst themselves. So it can do tasks using chatbots. So, for example, I go to Hawaii every 3 weeks, let's say. Yay. I know, right?
Can we switch slides?
Right? So I go every 3 weeks. So I give my agent my airline number. I give it my hotel rewards information. I let it know what kind of seat I like on a plane. I let it know what kind of hotel room I like. I let it know what kind of car I like to rent. And it will go out and do that for me. It will make the reservation for the room. It will make the reservation for the airline. It will reserve that car for me. So it does those tasks. So that's all well and good. However, in education, and what we are seeing today is agents going in and doing your Canvas class, answering your questions in Canvas, taking your quizzes in Canvas, you know, and this I would like to change. I wish I could change that, because it's so unfair, you know, for the students. You know, they don't realize it because they're just checking a box, right? They just want to get through that class, you know. But how can we? That's something I like to change. How can we get them to understand, you know, that they're there to develop, and by checking the box, they're not developing, and that's going to hurt them in the long run. Absolutely. You know, so there's so many things I'd like to change. Yeah. Kind of leaves us on a downer, doesn't it? But
No, but we're working kind of towards that, right?
We are. You know, these are things that we grapple with on a daily basis in our positions, and we want to help, and that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And specifically, yeah, your work with the state, your work at the local level, with the region,
And the librarians.
and
Yeah,
librarians on a
across
daily
the state.
basis, right?
Yeah, we're getting professional development for all those librarians to help them help everyone else.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
So you're helping people at least understand kind of the magnitude of the change that we're having.
It's big.
And hopefully when enough people have that awareness, they can kind of use their personal power to kind of push for that change on a larger level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
This has been fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Thank you again.
You're welcome.